This playthrough is rated M for mature.
Greetings and salutation viewers, Vauldemare here with more Hakuōki, Stories of the Shinsengumi. Last episode, we were almost attacked by Sannin, but Hijikata saved us, and we also discovered our situation that dealt with the Shogun and the Shinsengumi. But finally, after all this time, the main character finally said, I want to do something! And Hijikata's like, here's a letter, deliver it, because you're now a delivery boy. It's like the end of the first episode of Futurama. You'll be delivery... so I'll be a delivery boy? For all intents and purposes, yes! Alright! I'm a delivery boy! Except in this case, delivery girl. Or whatever. Anyway, let's get on with the story. I stuffed the letter into my shirt, double-checked to make sure it wouldn't fall out, and then opened up the map. This is my chance. I have to do a good job. According to this map, it looks like I have to go a ways. I better hurry or it's going to be evening by the time I get there. I should run. Even without the desire to arrive before evening, I likely would have to run anyway. I was far too excited to walk. Thanks to Hijikata's map, I found my way to Tenma without incident, although evening had come by the time I arrived. I'd been told earlier that Saito had taken a room under the name Yamaguchi. After a short wait, the receptionist directed me to his room. Yamaguchi, the alias used by Hajime Saito while guarding Miru during the Tenma Inn incident. Yamaguchi? Sorry to bother you. Oh, you. One of his eyebrows shifted up fractionally in response to my presence. Although he'd likely been expecting the letter, I was somewhat less predictable, having only been assigned the task earlier that day. I'm sorry you got someone as inexperienced as me. No, you misunderstood. I was only surprised. I expected to receive new orders soon, but I didn't think you'd be the one to deliver them. Right. Well, I asked if there was anything I could do to help, and this was it. Well, I can see us thinking. It's a good plan. One of our regulars would have drawn undue attention to this location. The captains are too recognizable and too valuable. New members might not be noticed, but how can we know where their true loyalties lie? You, on the other hand, can move unnoticed, and your loyalty is beyond question. Hijikata made an excellent choice. Oh, thank you. There was something very pleasant about being told I was trustworthy. The letter? Oh, of course. I pulled out the letter and handed it over. He tore it open and read it over quickly, then lit it on a nearby lantern and watched patiently until it was nothing more than ash. Saito? Yamaguchi. Right. Are you sure it was okay to burn it? I've read it. I know what it says. Why should I leave it intact to be intercepted? Oh, of course. Thank you for delivering this letter. Good work. Oh, well, just doing my job. No need for thanks. I certainly hadn't done anything very impressive. Anyone could have done it, but it did feel nice to be thanked. After all, I had done just what was asked of me, and I hadn't messed anything up. I was rather proud of myself. Now that the job was done, though, I wasn't sure what I should do next. Alright, we got another. So, return immediately, or should we talk to Saito? I don't know, here we go. Got a 3. So let's stay and talk with Saito for a bit. Why not? Saito had been ordered away from the Shinsengumi for the duration of his assignment. This was the first time I'd been able to see him in a while, and there was no way to know when he'd return. The fact that I didn't know when I might see him again made me reluctant to simply turn around and leave. I'd like to stay and talk for a bit if that's okay with you. Talk? To me? Yes. Had it really been such an odd request? The longer he stayed silent, the more I began to sweat. I suppose that's alright. Not here, though.
Huh?
I opened my mouth to ask, but he was already walking away. Quickly, I jogged to catch up.
ここならいいか。
This should be far enough. We reached a small back street nearby, and we finally stopped. Looking back, I could still see Tenma, but there weren't many people about, and the streetlights didn't reach us. Standing in such a narrow street forced us into somewhat close quarters than normal. Why are we out here?
俺の任務はいつ誰に狙われるかもわからぬ身の三浦の護衛だ。
My duty is to guard Miura, and we don't know when he might be attacked.
せっかく目立たないようにお前を使いによこしてくれたのに、多少は顔の知られた俺が目立つわけにはいかないからな。
Hijikata sent you because you won't be noticed. Unfortunately, I don't have that same luxury. My face is well known, and if I'm spotted, our plan is ruined.
ここならば人通りも少ないし、いいだろう。
There won't be many people here. We should be safe.
That's true. Sorry I didn't think of that.
別に構わん。お前がそういうことに気がつかなくても、俺は気がつく。
Don't worry about it. It's my job to think of these things. Your responsibilities lie elsewhere.
だからこそ俺がこういう任務についているんだ。別に恥ずべきことでも謝ることでもない。
Why else do you think I'm assigned to these sorts of missions? There's nothing for you to be ashamed of, and therefore no need to apologize.
Right.
それより、豚書の様子に変わったことはないか。
So, how are things at home? Anything out of the ordinary?
Well, everyone's been busy lately. After all that happened, I guess things are pretty restless right now.
そうか。まあ、それも当然だな。事件云々を抜きにしても、そもそも人数が大幅に減ってしまっているわけだしな。
I imagine so. Even without our recent losses, our numbers were significantly reduced.
Yeah.
For several moments, Saito was silent, deep in thought.
平助
How
の様
was
子
Hisuke?
はどうだ。
He wasn't talking. I was like, what happened? How was Hisuke? I'd expect him to ask eventually. What man in his position wouldn't have been concerned for his friend?
Well, as far as I can tell, he's still the same person he was before. I mean, he's a little different just because he can't be up and about during the day, but... Well, even though he still acts like the same person, no, because he does, I worry about him.
そうか。
Interesting.
Saito, can I ask you something?
なんだ。
What is it?
If you got injured like Hisuke or Sanin, or if you had to help your friends, would you drink the water of life?
飲む。その時俺になすべき任務があるのならな。
Yes, if that is what duty demanded of me. He showed no hesitation. Indeed, he hadn't even seemed to think about the question. That worried me.
But Saito, you've seen what happens to the Furies. How can you be so sure?
これを見ろ。
Look. In one smooth moment, he drew his sword from its sheath. Moonlight glinted off the blade, bright but cold.
この剣が今までどれほどの血を吸ってきたかもう覚えてもいない。
This sword has drawn blood, great rivers of it. Even I can't remember all the springs that fed them.
俺はあんたにそうやって気遣ってもらえるような人間じゃない。
I am not the kind of person who deserves your concern. His voice was quiet and hard.
敵も味方も数えきれんほど切り殺してきた。
I have killed my enemies and my allies, too many to count.
ならば俺もいつかは戦いの中で死ぬだろう。それが因果というものだ。
I have no doubt that I will die in battle, such is karma.
落ち水を飲もうと飲むまいと、羅刹となろうとなるまいと、俺のやることは同じ。
The course of my life would not change if I were to drink the water of life and become a fury.
この刀で敵を切る。そしていつの日か、俺が切られ、剣に倒れる。ただそ
I
れだけ
live
の
by
こ
the
と。
sword. I live by the sword, and one day I will die by the sword, fury or no.
There seemed to be no emotion attached to the thought of his own death. But this sword has also protected me. I know I don't have any right to say that killing people is bad, but you've used that sword against others to protect me. I share your karma. I'm alive because someone else is dead. Even so, I still want to live. I want my friends to live. I want you to live. Even if that means someone has to die. Does that make me a bad person?
いや、お前はそう思うなら、そう願うのなら、自分の思うことを貫けばいい。
If what you desire is life, how can you be wrong? All too often, doubt is little more than a poison.
話し込んでしまったな。そろそろ屯所へ帰れ。俺も三浦の警護に戻る。
We've been out here too long. It's time we return to the Shinsengumi, and I return to Miura.
Oh, okay.
Without warning, he turned, walked to an empty section of the road, and stopped.
山崎君、島田君もいるのだろう。
Yamazaki, Shimada, you're there, right?
Huh?
もう日も落ちている。陰ながら見守っていては、万に一つのことがないとも限らないからな。
The sun's gone down. If you stick to the shadows, you're gonna put her at risk.
屯所まで無事送り届けてくれ。
Just escort her personally.
了解しました。
Understood. Why are you two here?
この二人が来ているんだ。決まっているだろう。土方さん。
Orders from Hijikata. Why else?
そういうことです。でも、いつから気づいていたのですか？
Of course. How long have you known?
初めからだ。俺も患者働きが多いからな。
Since you got here, I've done your job plenty of times, you know.
なるほど。
I see.
では行く。お前たちも行け。
We've stayed too long. You better move. I called out to Saito one last time as we headed back towards the Tenma Inn.
Good luck. And please don't die.
The last part I whispered under my breath. It was hardly something he would have cared to hear, but I meant every word of it.
気をつけて帰れよ。
Be safe. Now I got a romance point with Saito, huh? Although I still won't get, unless there's another chance, I won't get any with him because I've gotten 2 with Okita, 2 with Hisuke, and 1 with him. So I feel bad for, was it Sarada and Hijikata, because those 2 are also romanceable, and I've had like no scenes with those because of my random rolling in the game. For a moment I thought I saw a smile across his face. With Saito gone, we turned and made our way back towards the Shinsengumi. Well, that was a nice little moment. On to the plot! The Shinsengumi, once solid, now wavered. What would happen to them? What would happen to the Fury Corps? Men were forced to watch as their friends became the undead monsters known as Furies. Was it any wonder that they found themselves conflicted, or that tempers began to rise? Several days later, the order was given to begin the Imperial Restoration. The Emperor would be restored to power, and his court would once again rule the nation. Imperial Restoration, an overall way of thought among Imperialist supporters who wanted to see the Emperor in power instead of the Shogun. The position of Shogun would be abolished, and Kyoto's military and judiciary commissioner positions would be eliminated. All that the Shinsengumi had fought for and believed in has fallen to pieces. Chapter 4. January 1868. It was the end of the year 1867. With the popular sentiments against them, the Tokugawa shogunate relinquished their political power to the imperial court. Lord Yoshinobu Tokugawa resigned his position as shogun and retired at Osaka Castle to set about building a system that would restrict the growing Satsuma and Chozu influence. Osaka Castle, built by Hideyoshi Toyotomi during the Warring States period to surpass Nobunaga Azuchi's castle, it was a stronghold of the shogunate and considered impregnable. But even in Edo, the shogun's home, the architects of his political downfall were making trouble. When some Satsuma vessels started a revolt in Edo, the shogunate forces responded with an attack on their domain. After the Edo instance, more shogunate troops began to gather in Osaka, ostensibly to force the Satsuma into taking responsibility for their actions in Edo. The shogunate army hoped that a show of strength would help establish them as a force to be reckoned with, even under the new government. We thought they were right to do so. We thought that a massive show of force would likely pressure the Satsuma into backing down. Ignorant of Lord Yoshinobu's intentions, the Shinsengumi was designed to guard the Fushimi magistrate's office along with soldiers gathered from other domains. Then, just as the new year was beginning, something terrible happened. Chief Kondo was shot on his way home from a meeting in Kyoto. He survived the attack, but suffered a serious wound in his right shoulder. Oka's coughing had gotten worse, and so he and Kondo were sent to Osaka Castle, where they would be cared for by Dr. Matsumoto. It was the first day of the new year, and for some reason the Fushimi magistrate's office was especially noisy. Everywhere men were checking their weapons or armor, as if they were preparing to march out to battle. Had the Satsuma domain attacked? Nagakura was barking orders left and right, so I waited for a lull before I spoke up. I decided being straightforward was the best choice. Has something happened? He nodded and gave a nervous laugh.
ああ、どうやら大阪にいる旧幕府軍がこっちに進軍してきているらしい。
Yeah, it looks like the rest of the old Shogun army in Osaka is heading this way. Really? Reinforcements were coming then. I thought for a moment before my next question. Does that mean we're going to join up with them and have an all-out battle with the Satsuma and Chosu? Nagakura shook his head.
いや、人数に見せかけた威嚇だろうな。
No, we'll probably just try and scare him into backing down. The Shogunate army should have the numbers for it. It sounded like a good plan. If the Satsuma Chosu army could just be frightened away, we could keep Kyoto from turning into a battlefield.
大阪にいる旧幕府軍は15000人。それに対する薩長軍は多く見積もっても5000人らしい。
The Shogunate army has about 15,000 men in Osaka, but those Satsuma and Chosu should together have about 5,000.
普通に考えりゃ勝負は見えてる。バカじゃない限り兵を引くと思うがな。
It doesn't take a general to see who'd win in that fight. So long as they're not stupid, I'm sure they'll retreat. He laughed, and I felt reassured, maybe even hopeful.
そうなってくれりゃいいがな。だが、相手は薩摩と長州だ。
That'd be nice, but we're dealing with the Satsuma and the Choshu. I hadn't noticed Hijikata come over, but he seemed to have heard most of our conversation. Standing next to him, silent as always, was Saito.
そんなことねえって。いくらあいつらでも数勘定くらいできるだろう。
Don't worry about it. Even those bastards can count, right? Saito shrugged.
文久3年の禁門の変を忘れたか。奴らはやるとなったら死に物狂いで仕掛けてくる。
Have you already forgotten the Hamaguri Rebellion? When they make a choice, they commit to it entirely, no matter the cost or the odds. Hijikata and Saito didn't seem to share Nagakura's optimistic appraisal, and were at least being somewhat more cautious. Nagakura's face twisted into an uncharacteristic frown.
忘れちゃいねえよ。だから万が一に備えて朝から戦の準備してるんじゃねえか。
No, I haven't forgotten. That's why I've been preparing for the battle since this morning. That was when we heard it. For a long moment, we simply stared at one another, speechless. It was Nagakura who broke the silence.
おいおい、砲声だぜ。まさか始まったんじゃねえだろうな。
I didn't hear the gunshots. Must have been. Some of the sound effects have been turned down pretty low, and that's the normal state of the game. So because it doesn't ruin the atmosphere. But anyway, I didn't hear. But hey, were those gunshots? Have they started fighting? Hijikata sighed.
いや、そのまさかだ。斉藤、山崎を連れて外の状況を調べてこい。新八は大使の戦支度を急がせろ。
Looks like it. Saito, take Yamazaki. Go find out what's happening. Shinpachi, tell the men to get ready in battle. Saito and Nagakura nodded.
了解。
Understood.
承知。
Got it. With that, they turned and jogged off to attend to their duties. Hijikata spun on his heels and left as well, either ignorant of my presence or uninterested in it. The Hamaguri Rebellion had involved the Choshu domain, attacking Kyoto where they'd been repelled by a combination of Shogunate and Satsuma forces. This time, however, the situation was reversed. It was the Shogunate forces on the attack, and the Satsuma and Choshu were defending Kyoto from them.
Why are they doing this? Nobody wants Kyoto to become a war zone, do they? It was looking more and more likely that Kyoto would turn into a battlefield. What would happen to the city? To its people? Time wore on, and gunfire began to echo across the Kyoto sky. The old shogunate army that Satsuma Chosu had forced it had finally come to blows. War had begun. When the Fushima magistrate's office came under cannon bombardment, a large contingent of Shinsengumi soldiers headed out to engage the attackers. Since I was useless in battle, I was to remain behind in the magistrate's office.
こっちの大砲はどうした？こっちからも向こうを狙って撃てんのか？
What's happening to our cannons? Can't we fire back at them? Inui had been assigned to the defense of the building itself and was discussing his options with his men.
それが敵のいる場所が高すぎて狙えません。
They've got the high ground. We can't actually fire up that far, okay? The enemy cannons had set themselves up on a nearby hill. It was easy enough for them to fire down on us, but our shells couldn't reach them.
なんと、これでは敵の的になるだけではないか。
I see. So all we could do is sit here and let them attack us. He glared up at the hilltop. If we couldn't fire back, there was nothing to stop the enemy from covering the magistrate's office and cannon fire. Inui glanced over at me.
ここは危険だ。あんたは安全な場所に隠れてなさい。
You should go. This place is too dangerous. But even if I couldn't fight, there were things I could do. I could carry ammunition or weapons or run messages. I wanted to help too. But before I could explain, Inui cut me off with a gentle smile.
ここは私たちに任せていいんだよ。
It's alright. You can leave this one to us. He was right, of course. There was nothing I could do that another member of the Shinsengumi couldn't also do. And although plenty of the men were out fighting, there were still a lot of them left in the magistrate's office. All there was to do now was endure. That's why the main character misses out on most of the action in this game. I guess there's a reason for it, but still. I went back inside and sat down in a corner of my room. Every time a shell landed, the whole building shook, but all I could do was sit patiently and wait for the bombardment to end. Utter impotence made me want to cry. As the sun began to dip towards the horizon, the gunfire stopped, and the magistrate's office was thrown into eerie silence. After a few moments of quiet, I heard the front gate crack open, and knew the men who'd gone out to fight had returned. I leapt up and ran out to greet them. Oh. As I watched, Hijikata and the rest troop silently into the As I watched Hijikata and the rest troop silently into the compound, I felt my body sag with relief. As I looked close, however, I saw that they had little to be excited about. Every face was hard and quiet, and most were smudged with dirt or blood. Many of the men were injured, and as they limped through the gate, their blood stained the courtyard red. The battle's outcome was written plain across every face that returned. What was the outcome? What happened? Did someone die? Did we lose poorly because of a bad strategy thinking numbers would win the day? Find out next time in the next episode of Hakuōki, Stories of the Shinsengumi. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next episode.